Okay, scholars. So we are going to go over all of the problems. All right. So a library has fewer than 120 books in stock. Okay, write an inequality to represent the situation and solve for the possible number of books the library can have. All right. So there's a few things you need to understand about inequalities. Inequalities could be less, which is also like few, right? And it's when it looks like this, right? Whatever you're talking about is less than whatever is given. Or it could be more or greater, right? And that looks like this. Whenever you're talking about like I always say like the crocodile eats the bigger number, right? But then this is the most important part because it could be less or equal, right? Or no more than. When you have something you're talking about and it's less than or equal to, or no more than, that means it's talking about the number and everything less than the number. Or you can have greater or equal or no less than. And that means you're talking about something and it's bigger than it or it's equal to it, right? So that part is very important. Now, when you're solving this, the first thing you want to do is you want to create a variable for the subject. So step one, create variable for subject. In this case, the library is what we're talking about. The library is a subject. So I'm going to say L. Then step two is you want to compare your subject with um, the inequality with an amount using correct inequality. So for example, library, and it says fewer, and we know few means it's smaller than, and then the amount is 120, right? And like some possible like numbers could be like anything less than 120. So like 10 or 40 or 100 or even 119 because that all represents what's fewer than 120, right? Now, if we're graphing, you need to create a line and you need to put the amount you're talking about in the center, put numbers greater than to the right and numbers less than to the left. Now, this is the other thing I didn't say. If it is fewer, it's an open circle. If it is greater, it is an open circle. But if it is fewer or equal to, it's a closed circle because of the equal to part. And these are critical points, right? So your critical point needs to be on the number being discussed. So because it's just fewer, it's an open circle. But it needs to go in this direction. Your critical point is always right. So let's look at another problem. A baker baked more than 25 muffins. So let's use the CFS we created. So create a variable, which is the subject. So like we're talking about a baker, so we'll say B, right? The inequality is more, right? More than 25. And some possible options could be 26, 36, 50. And if you're graphing it in the center, put the number you're talking about, put numbers greater, put numbers less. And since it's just greater, it's an open circle on the critical point, but it's going in this direction to symbolize numbers greater than 25. Okay. Jamal ran 21 miles in 4 hours. How far did he run in 1 hour? So, we know we're comparing. Like you want to list what you're comparing in the table. So miles and hours. And we know he went 24 miles in 4 hours. We want to know how far did he run in 1 hour? Since there's a multiplicative relationship between 4 and 1, you could just put it directly under the 4, which tells you need to divide by 4, because to get from 4 to 4, you divide by 4. You do on one side, you do on the other side. And 24 divided by 4 is 6. Another way to look at it is miles and hours, 24 and 4. If you want to figure out for 1 hour, you just divide it by itself. And 24 divided by 4 equals 6. And that lets you know the unit rate. So to get from hours to miles, you multiply by 6. And to get from miles to hours, you divide by 6. So the answer is 6. I'm taking my time on this, and I hope you're paying attention, right? Because this can really help you feel confident on the test. So put the time in, and it'll help you in the long run. The lowest point of Death Valley, California, has an elevation of minus 282 feet. The lowest point in Badwater has an elevation of 279. Which math statement correctly compares these elevations? So we're comparing minus 282 with minus 279. Now, if we had a number line, and let's say this was 0 because we're talking about negatives, and this was, let's say this was negative 275. Next would be negative 276. And if you keep going, you will have negative 279. And you keep going, you will have negative 282. As the numbers go to the left, they get smaller. So it's clear that minus 282 is smaller than minus 279 because minus 279 is closer to 0. Now, you can write it multiple ways, right? You can write it that way, or you can say minus 279 is bigger than minus 282. Now let's look at the option. Minus 282 is bigger than 279. That is incorrect because minus 279 is closer to 0. Minus 282 is less than minus 279. That is true. They are not even, and minus 279 is not less than minus 282. So your answer is B. Now we want to look at distributive property. Which expression is equivalent to 56 and 14? Now I'm gonna solve this two different ways. One of the ways I'm gonna solve is using the greatest common factor. And the other way I'm gonna use this is just to solve the answer choices. So like if you had a scrap paper, you would literally just 7 into 8 plus 2. That's A, B, C, and D. 8 into 8 groups of 7 plus 2. 7 groups of 8 plus 4. 7 groups of 7 plus 2. Now you're looking for 56 plus 14. So you could do it two ways. You could do it 8 plus 2 is 10, and then 10 times 7 is 70. However, this will not help you here, right? Because you need to, well, it could help you if you just added the 56 plus the 14. And that equals 70, so that makes sense. This being 70 tells me that that is correct, but you could double check it. 7 times 8 is 56, and 7 times 2 is 14, so it's 56 plus 14. Yep. And so that tells you A is correct. This B wouldn't be correct because that's 8 times 9, and that's 72. That wouldn't be correct because that's 7 times 12, which is 84. And that's 7 times 9, which is 63. Now, you can use a greatest common factor to help you out. Here you have 56, and here you have 14, right? So 1 times 56 is 56, 2 times 28. Does 3 go into 56? Well, 3 goes into 54. 3 goes into 54. 4 goes into 56 because 4 goes into 10. 4 goes into 40 10 times, and then plus 16, 4 goes into 16 4 times. So that's 10 plus 4 is 14. And then no 5, no 6, 7 times 8, I believe. And then that closes. 1 times 14, 2 times 7. Greatest common factor is 14. However, if you look here, so excuse me, you can't necessarily use the greatest common factor, use the common factor. Here it tells you the factors that you can use is 7 on the outside. So let's say you use the common factor of 7. 7 times what gives you 56? 7 times 8, and then 7 times 2. Do you see how I did that? The greatest common factor is on the, well, the common factor is on the outside, and whatever it multiplies to get each of these the left and the right factor will give you the inside. This is known as factoring, and this is like a really high skill. So like practicing that will really help you. Now, when you're dividing fractions, words like has mean like total, right? What you have, right? So like you have 5, 6 gallons of paint. Okay, so your total is 5, 6 gallons of paint. Now you use 1 9 gallon measuring cup, okay, to pour the paint into buckets. When you see like pouring something into equal buckets, sharing something, lets you know you are dividing, right? So now you know you have to divide this by groups of 1 9. You got to see how many groups of 1 9 total 5 6. Now, can you divide across? Well, 5 can divide into 1 5 times, but 6 cannot divide into 9. If you can't divide, right, you need to multiply by reciprocal, which means 5 6, keep total first. I noticed that some students make that mistake. Then multiply by the reciprocal, which is the opposite, 9 over 1. 5 times 9 is 45. 6 times 1 is 6. Then you have to simplify. If that's not given to you, right, then you got to simplify. How many groups go of 6 go into 45? Well, 6 goes into 42 7 times. Um, 42 and 3 6. And 3 6 can be simplified into 1/2. So it's 7 and 1/2, which is 7.5. Now we just did a lot of practice here. Hopefully you took a lot of notes. And I would love to see like how these notes help you in solving these problems. I'm sure it can. All right. Good luck and good night.